What's up? So, I've been absent recently. Not that anyone's around to notice, but I've actually been recording some extra things with Zach. Personalized podcasts based on your specific leagues. And it's taken up the time I'd usually use to record these YouTube videos, but he foolishly went to a live draft of the Scott Fish Bowl, so real quick. Number one, to stop wasting roster spots. Roster spots have value. It's not a lot of value, but it's a little bit of value. More importantly, basic Dynasty principles you should just be applying them. You shouldn't be spending roster spots on KJ Osborne. In fact, you shouldn't be spending roster spots on KJ Osborne in general, or Paris Campbell, or whatever sleeper wide receiver who's drafted. There are some exceptions, but we should take very, very few shots at the end of our depth chart on wide receivers in general. Why is that? Wide receivers come from nowhere very, very rarely. Despite the fact there's a whole bunch of lies out there about how deep wide receiver is, the actual wide receivers that you want on a Dynasty team or have any level of utility to your Dynasty team is relatively small to the number of roster spots available in a league. Running backs come from nowhere a great deal, like a lot more. They also produce through smaller windows a lot more often, so even when you're looking at like finishing in the top 12 or top 24, and wide receiver it barely ever happens, and running back happens a lot every year, it's even a larger number because running backs are good for one or two games here and there relatively often, and are not showing up in those end of season points per game or positional overall rank. What's more, the other positions, the onesie positions as I call them, the quarterback and tight end, even if you don't play kicker, the quarterback and tight end, the best way to playing those positions is to have a few extra on the end of your bench to try and catch that one-year starter or that brief starter or that sudden come-from-nowhere player. Because while they don't happen as much or as often or as consistently as running back, we do know that there's a little bit of weirdness to where the best players in that position come from. The best tight ends in the NFL for fantasy ever, not one of them has been drafted in the first round. It is worth noting that tight ends take a weirder path. Go take a look at Delaney Walker's career sometimes, and you'll get an idea of why it's always good just to have some flyers. Last year we did a video on where league winners come from and look at what positions score greater points than expected based on their ADP most often. The tight end position outside of round 10 was a huge winner from that research, so stop doing it. You're rostering too many wide receivers. Roster more running backs, and if you want to be a little contrary, maybe an extra tight end or a quarterback, even on one QB. Why not? Number two, you need to stop being afraid of the mystery box. That kind of flies in the face of the Peter Griffin meme from Family Guy. You know, maybe it's a boat, because I say that a lot, especially on the Dynasty Grind every Wednesday when people are talking about trades with rookies or disappointing sophomores. But you also need to do it appropriately. Mystery is more valuable than certainty when it comes to upside. A player that you know nothing about, a player that has missed time or hasn't gotten on the field a lot through legitimate reasons like an injury or being suspended, that player is just a mystery. This is another reason why having college rookie profiles is essential. There's no real way of avoiding it in Dynasty. There's no real way of ADPing it away. I think, although some people disagree, I think you need some baseline based on that history of their production at that level, because before we actually know what they are in the NFL, or they start to show us what they are in the NFL, that's all we really have to go on. And players who don't show up by the time they're actually playing, like they don't break out into the top 36, or they don't put up a decent points per game, or they don't earn a decent target share, they're immediately more disappointing than they are mysteries. Number three, please stop believing that efficiency matters. It doesn't. For a start, stats don't work in a vacuum, and every time someone posts an efficiency stat which is eye-wideningly impressive, you already know there's a problem with the way they're filtering into that sample. He'd be really great if he had more touches, but the minute he gets more touches, what made you think he was going to be really great disappears because he's suddenly not that efficient on more touches, and that's why he wasn't getting more touches. Stats don't exist in a vacuum. If you're getting a decent points per target, which is an argument for Sky Moore this year, that doesn't discount all the negative comparisons of how he compares to rookies in his first year. You have to look at players who perform similarly in terms of volume creation or earning targets or earning opportunity, and then go looking for the positive and negative group in that sample. You have to consider how those stats work together. Having a high points per target but having low targets is essentially just saying he was bad. He didn't get a lot of targets, and that's it. Or saying David Montgomery has been bad because he's been inefficient. He's been a top 12 running back, that thing that we want, that thing that we're hunting for. But we're defining bad as being a top 12 running back, which is what we want. So are we chasing bad things now? Is this a thing we're doing now? We just don't like points because they weren't efficiently scored on the level of NFL play? Combined on this, splits suck, and this is ultimately why. If you look through a certain segment of the season and find a player working really well within that section of the season, and then connect it to variables relative to that sample, or relative to those weeks that he was playing really well or scoring really highly, you haven't found signal that that player is actually this small segment of his season when he plays next year. What you found is he scored a lot of points during that section, and you've got to find excuses for why it was only during that section, when really the answer is he couldn't do it for a full season, or didn't, if you prefer that wording, as a lack of pejorative sense to that wording. A player who sucked probably sucks. Number 4. Stop thinking you're better than ADP. I feel a lot of people, especially ones I talk to a lot in my Discord, rolling their eyes right now, but you're not. And I'm not going to run through it again. I'm not, because you don't believe it, and I get it. But here's a challenge for you. If you think you don't have to pay attention, not follow ADP strictly, because the whole point of strategy and understanding where different things happen in ADP on large and where league winners come from, for example, is that you can make an adjustment to what you're targeting at the time. But here's a challenge to test it. You don't have to trust me or stupid math. Next time you're doing a startup and you're in control of that startup or have some say in that startup, choose one of the teams to be an auto picks team. Like literally it just drafts based on ADP in the startup and then in rookie drafts. And then watch it. Seriously, that team will beat you. 5. You got to stop valuing youth as a quality all of its own. Now, a good example of this, and I know it's not all of you, but I see it happening in my drafts and in certain ADP mocks a lot. On average, Love, Pickett, and Ridder are drafted below Matthew Stafford. They're drafted below the older quarterbacks that we know have higher upside. But every now and again, and it might be you, will draft them because you lack value at the quarterback position, and they're young, and so they're going to be bad for longer, ideally. One thing, no they're not. They probably have the same number of starter years in them as a Matthew Stafford right now. But also, they're bad. The chances that Love, Ridder, or Pickett actually are better than we expect are a lot lower than Stafford performing like we have seen him done before in the future. Youth itself is not a value. It's tied intrinsically to our expectation of them, a likely expectation of them in ADP, because you're not better than ADP. No one is. Over time, consistently, in any one particular area, for sure. Hey, thanks for checking out the video. I forgot to record an outro, so I'm doing it now. Yeah, this was like a 30-minute rant on various different things, so it's a lot less numbers-driven, hey, here are the examples. But I thought I'd try something else to give me a chance to mix up some of the editing a little bit, try something new. Let me know what you think. I really appreciate however much of it you checked out, which is usually on average about 4 minutes. So you're probably not seeing this bit, but yeah, I really appreciate it. Thanks very much, and I'll see you in the next video.